I'd like to welcome Melissa Proctor, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for the Atlanta Hawks, as well as State Farm Arena. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
And Melissa, we've known each other a long time, and I love your path and your journey. So I wonder if you could just start by telling us a little bit about the path that led you to where you are now as Chief Marketing Officer for the Hawks in State Farm Arena.
Absolutely. Well, I started out as a ball girl on the court for the Miami Heat in high school. And after that, went to Wake Forest, go Deeks. Following that, I ended up as an intern in marketing for TNT at Turner. And from that, had a number of different opportunities while at Turner Broadcasting, both here in Atlanta as well as in the London office, Turner UK. And then, following all of that, worked from the entertainment division, going to animation and kids, young adult, and then ultimately getting a role within Turner Sports for a startup called Upwave, which was really, really a cool idea, probably a little bit before its time. And then when that division shut down, ultimately was out of a job for a while and got laid off when I was 8 months pregnant. But that experience opened the door to a completely new opportunity at the Atlanta Hawks, coming in as a VP of brand strategy, and then ultimately now evolving to the head of strategy and now Executive Vice President and CMO.
I love that you have a non-traditional journey in terms of your path. I think many of us that end up in marketing don't grow up our whole lives wanting to be a marketer. It's just we evolve into that role. So I'm just curious, how you ended up like why did marketing become the focus as you went along that journey, and how did that come to be?
It's interesting because while I was in college, I never took a marketing class. And so my introduction to marketing really happened at Turner as an intern that year. And really, I learned about different components of marketing. So understanding brand strategy and how that played into, whether it's digital marketing, overall creative side of marketing. And based on having a background in visual arts and creative, I think, the whole world of marketing really plays into my strengths of both creative and strategy. And so being able to bridge the gap between the two is a lot of what my success has been, and almost a creative problem solving approach to things that I bring, probably based on my visual arts background. I think it's kind of the best of both worlds for me. And so I never saw marketing as the goal. So to be honest, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but the idea of being open to the journey and the opportunities that come forth, it's really been a lot of what has led me.
I know that your background as an artist has come in handy in many different times throughout your career. And actually, I have a classmate from Wake Forest who is a theater major who ended up becoming Chief Marketing Officer of Coach, she was Chief Marketing Officer of Kate Spade, which got acquired by Coach. Mm-hmm. She always talks about how her theater major really helped her. I know we were both communications majors at Wake Forest, but talk to me a little bit about how the art has come in handy over the years throughout your career.
No, absolutely. I think art for me has almost become a superpower that I can whip out on occasion. And I remember earlier in my career, there would be a need to have a logo designed or, a design for a piece of creative or a piece of marketing. And instead of paying an agency, they would say, hey, Melissa, can you take a stab at this? And I would have the ability to do that. So from a cost savings perspective, it absolutely helps. But I do think now, especially at this stage, I can have conversations with my creative teams from a place of understanding, having been there and done that, and understanding the layered files and what's necessary and what's important, or even from looking at animated graphics, being able to have the experience and knowing how long things take, and really being able to articulate the timing that's necessary in order to bring things together, I think has tremendously helped. And I think personally, just my passion for art and design helps me see something and react to it in a different way as a marketer than I would be as just someone with an opinion. Based on having the experience and having gone through it, both on the creative side in the development of it, and now on the approval side as a leader strategically, I think it's a good perspective of both perspectives.
Yeah, I have a deep appreciation for people who can create from scratch. creative, authentic, original ideas and create something from scratch. So I think that's also a muscle that you've probably been flexing for a long time, that maybe that helps you in situations where you have to be original and come up with something new.
Yeah, and I think it really provides a chance to approach problems in a different way. So I would look at juxtaposed worlds instead of just saying, hey, what did we do last time and how do we, flip it up this time? I really am much more of a, let's get a clean slate. It's like having a blank canvas and let's create something. And I've found at other points in my career, I've gotten the feedback that my strength is being able to take a blank sheet of paper and create something, whether it's a whole department or an opportunity or a campaign, versus kind of copy pasting what's been done in the past and just duplicating.
Well, I know that your marketing activities at the Hawks have been very creative, and you've come up with some really fun and unique and interesting executions. And I think that maybe comes partially, creativity is creativity. It exhibits in different forms. But so I know that you have a book that you've written. I know originally it was written sort of to your daughter as a kind of inspirational explanation of your journey and your path. So first of all, I know that you just launched melissamproctor.com is your website, but tell me a little bit about the book. How did the book come to be, and why did you write it, and what are you most excited about it?
Absolutely. I have a copy of it right here.
Oh,
From
wow,
Ball Girl
real?
to CMO. And it's interesting. So I really did write it for my daughter, Marley, is I realized, my mom passed away some years ago, and there were so many questions of things that I wanted to know, how she made these decisions. How did she, what did she learn along the way? And I decided that, early on, I was going to create a blog, and it was really just a way for me to put down my experiences, my journey. So one day when she gets older and it's relevant, right now she's 6, so it's going to be a while. She can, go online and find it and kind of read about it. But every time I spoke to different audiences, the question would always come, how did you get to be, a ball girl for the Miami Heat, and ultimately you get to be a CMO for the Atlanta Hawks? What was that process? What does it look like? And so I really decided I could write this book for my daughter, but hopefully would inspire or help other people just gain different perspective, and really teaching them tricks and things that I learned along the way, so they didn't make the same mistakes I did, or hopefully can be a lot better than I am. And so that was the initial desire, and it probably took me 3 years, longer than anticipated, because in my mind I was going to write a chapter a week or a month, and that turned into 2 chapters in an entire year.
Right.
But in terms of the process, my goal was really just to have it done. And so in working through the process with this amazing publishing company locally here in Atlanta called Mind Matters Publishing, when I got to the end, I didn't even realize I was done. They're like, great, so how are you going to market it? And I was like, I didn't even think about marketing it. So much of the goal was really just getting it done for my daughter. And so I couldn't be more proud just of the fact that it's completed.
That's amazing. Well, it's funny because if you ask a crowd of people in a room, how many of you would like to write a book? They all raise their hand, 90% raise their hand. And then if you ask, how many of you have written the first chapter of your book? Nobody raises their hand. So
it's a lot of work.
Congrats for finishing the book and having it out there. It is available on Amazon pre-order right now, but by the time you're watching this, it's probably widely available on Amazon and elsewhere, right?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and digital copies will be out. So if anyone wants to just check it out, it's there, and I'm really excited about it.
Great. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about your role. And so you've been at the Hawks for 6 years now. So I'm just wondering, beyond the fact that we're recording this during the midst of a global pandemic and issues that come with that, naturally, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced over the 6 years, and what's keeping the role interesting for you today?
That's a great question, because when I first got into the role at the Atlanta Hawks, it was VP of brand strategy. Right. And a lot of that work was on defining the brand of the Atlanta Hawks, defining the target audience, and really creating that brand story. And in going through that, there was a lot of, just challenges and understanding. The one thing that we can't control in sports marketing is the team. I don't control who's on the team. I don't control wins and losses. But, around the time of this rebrand, we also won 60 games. And so that 60-win season was phenomenal, just in understanding, brand passion and energy within the city. And that energy, which really kind of helped propel our business, with the transformation from Phillips Arena to State Farm Arena, huge opportunity, never rebranded an entire building before. And so that was a very unique challenge that we learned a lot in. But then also the NBA.
Wait, and that wasn't just a name change, that you also did a lot of refurbishing of the actual
We transformed
space, right?
the entire building. And we say it's, from the roof line to the baseline, it was a completely new building. And really building strategically for next generation Atlanta and a lot of our, B2B kind of segments, and having new premium spaces to entertain clients and things like that. So that was a unique challenge. Developing a practice facility in partnership with Emory and going through that and launching it was another unique challenge. The NBA evolved within the last 6 years as well. So launching NBA 2K as a league didn't exist before. So building an entire brand for that.
Wow.
The G League growth has been pretty tremendous over the past 6 years.
That's the developmental league for players that are on the cusp of maybe making NBA.
It's kind of the minor league of NBA teams. And so we brought a team in Erie and then ultimately moved it to College Park. And so we have the College Park Skyhawks now, which didn't exist before. So building out that brand from scratch is a completely new and unique challenge. My role has shifted and evolved to take on a lot more departments and teams to really have alignment around grassroots marketing and what we're doing from a community perspective. And so that's been awesome. But I'd really say the pandemic and kind of shutting down a season, in March, where the season was almost ready to conclude, and really shifting our business from, being live events in an enclosed arena to looking at how do we become a community asset. So one of the major things for our organization has been voting. After the previous elections in Atlanta, we really worked with Fulton County and said, how can we be a resource to the entire community of Atlanta around early voting? So starting with the runoffs and now for the general election in October, for early voting, the excitement that we have and just training our staff and really being able to open our doors in a different way to help the community has been awesome. And even with the pandemic of, being able to partner with Gooder to feed people in different neighborhoods who are in need in a really unique time. It's been a lot, but it's purpose-driven work, which really is impactful for me.
I'm a huge fan of Jasmine and Gooder. In fact, I'm on the board of AMA Atlanta, and we just honored Jasmine with our Marketing for Good award this year. Could you just really quickly explain what Gooder is and what the Hawks are doing with Gooder?
Absolutely. So we partnered with Gooder. We were actually looking to partner with them right around the time the season ended to kind of reclaim all of the food that we had not used, after games and really large events, so that we can use it to go feed people who are in need in Atlanta. And there's a lot of food insecurity in our city. And so with the pandemic and the shutdown and people losing their jobs, we partnered with Jasmine and Gooder initially on pop-up grocery stores, where we said, the Atlanta Hawks Foundation can partner with Gooder and going into different neighborhoods and communities that were most in need to develop these grocery stores where they would, people would be able to log in, RSVP for a spot, and come in and get food to feed them and their family over time, which was really impactful. And then we started to see
grocery store, right? Like this is not
100% for free,
right?
On behalf of the Hawks for the community. And then we started to see when seniors were shut in and really not able to leave just based on them being higher at risk for COVID, we started doing drop-off and deliveries for seniors as well. So that we would deliver food directly to their homes. And so like the looks on their faces and the joy that they had of just, being so appreciative that someone thought of them and they didn't have to try to figure out where their next meal was going to come from was huge. And so partnering with Jasmine, and her team on doing a lot of that work and even thinking of how we continue to do some work with them in the future has been really great.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I was going to say, one of the questions I want to ask you is where do you and your team find inspiration? But it sounds like that's one place maybe you find inspiration is being a part of the community beyond just it's not just about basketball, it's about being a part of the community.
I really believe that, for us in the Atlanta Hawks, I built a really, really strong marketing team. And I think that everyone has personal passion for the work that they do in their respective worlds. It's awesome when we are doing things, for example, even in announcing our new uniform designs a little bit earlier this summer. The response that people have had, just, friends of ours that calling like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. You did such a great job. It's different when you're working with a brand that is so public facing, right? And that people feel such a strong passion towards. And so we are inspired every day by our fans, by our players, by the work the NBA is doing, and I think when it is purpose driven and we have an owner and an ownership group that has made it very clear that our goal is to be a community asset, we know what our work is and we know what it is we have to do. And so even when we made the announcement of becoming the largest, voting precinct in the state of Georgia, the calls that we received, like, oh man, the work you guys are doing is so cool. That just takes the level of meaning and impact to another level, because now it's personal. And I really think a lot of members of the team feel that sense of responsibility and are driven and inspired by how do we continue to do that level of work.
Well, and I appreciate that you all have led the way and done things first in many cases and you've taken some risks that have, in most cases, paid off really well. But I know, for example, with the early voting and the primary voting, almost many of the other NBA teams who have their arena relationships have followed suit, but the Hawks were first.
We were first, yes.
Yeah. So, talk about maybe integrating those things with marketing. Like, it sounds like you never come up with the idea of because it's going to be a good marketing tactic. You come up with the idea because it's going to be good for the Hawks and the community, and then think about the marketing that goes to promote that afterwards. Is that right?
100%, and we really are thinking of how to be the asset to the community first, and then how do we amplify the work that we're doing. And so even in the example of early voting, it's a unique challenge because it's only for folks in Fulton County. And so going to State Farm Arena, /vote, we can get all the information of what's necessary for that. But as a broader message, as, a civic asset, we also have a responsibility. We want our young fans to vote and just exercise their right. And so we're partnering with the Golden State Warriors on a campaign called Voters Win. And so all people have to do is text Hawks to 26797, and they're able to get all the information they need to see if they're registered to vote, to understand where to go. And for us, we took that as our marketing opportunity to say, all right, this is how we can work with our players and our partners to really just encourage people to do the right thing. So whether you're coming into the arena to vote early or not, it's still important that you can exercise your right to vote. And we partnered with the Warriors on a really cool strategy to say, let's break up our time into quarters. And so every quarter, we're going to see which team is going to win. And so the Hawks brought the trophy home for the first quarter, and we developed a trophy together called the Good Trouble Trophy. And it was in honor of John Lewis.
Nice tie-in.
And so, there's a beautiful trophy being created, and we are going to be able to share that, across our social. And we're Atlanta, so we want to bring that home. But, again, our mantra of being true to Atlanta is so important. And we think that through all the work that we do, it's really how do we encourage that in order to just do the best work that we can.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, I'm going to shift gears to leadership a little bit. So what are the most important values that you want to demonstrate as a leader? And then you could also maybe say what values you're looking for in people on your team.
For sure. I think leadership, there are many values that are incredibly important. The biggest one for me is authenticity. And I think being an authentic leader that's really looking at how to help others grow and develop, servant leadership is really important. And so the biggest, amount of flattery for me is someone saying, oh man, someone on your team is so great. I'd love for them to come and work for me. That's great. I want people to continue to grow and develop, or having team members that love working together so much and collaboratively that it almost feels like family, not like work. I think that's important. Some years ago, I had a mentor that really helped me think around guiding principles for my life and my career. And I've developed 5 of them, and I talk a lot about it in my book. But the idea that, by developing these guiding principles almost as a filter that you use to make decisions based upon is really important. And so when I look at, my leadership, many of my leadership decisions are based on that. Like, life is always going to be more important than work. And that idea of work-life harmony or balance is critical. And, at work, you give 100%, when you're there. But ultimately, if you're not fulfilled and living a life that brings you joy, you're not going to do your best work. And so I really, think about that for my team and want to ensure that I give them the space they need and the time that they need, in order for them to be their best so that they can come and do their best work as well.
So that brings me to another question that is a little off script, but now with COVID and being remote, how do you coach and mentor your team and make sure you keep that connection with them, knowing that most of your interaction with them is digitally versus in person? How do you stay connected and work with
Well,
them?
yeah, it's a good question because I do think that COVID has had a lot of, unique challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. And so my entire team, we call it the Brand Innovations Group, BIG. And
Mhm.
for Cinco de Mayo, we had an awesome scavenger hunt, which were about 50 people running around looking for sombreros and all types of craziness. And it was a lot of fun. So still, keeping it light.
You
We
mean
have
just within your
trivia
team?
within our
Just for your
team.
team? Oh, okay,
hmm
cool.
and we do trivia and some things like that. But I think what's important is, the work keeps us tight. And so we're speaking on a regular basis as things are happening in the world. We get together and talk about it because it's not just, we're here to get this job done, but we want to make sure that people are good. We are looking at, working with our team psychologists and helping our team just find ways to cope during COVID
Wow.
because that's really important. And so it's not just around getting the projects done because obviously there's still a lot of work happening on that side. But, my leadership team specifically, they wanted to see each other so much.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, we all met up social distance gathering at Piedmont Park just to, see each other because we haven't seen each other since March. And so I think it's important, but really speaking to the team and understanding their needs and being flexible, because I think
Mhm.
that's the most important thing at this time, especially just having grace with people.
So what advice would you give to somebody that's entering a similar role to yours, or even a step or two below your current role? What advice would you give to a marketer who's making their way through their career?
Wow. I think it's a big question because every role is different.
Yeah.
Every company is different and the needs are. The one thing that I would say, which is probably the best advice that I got, is just come in and listen, especially if you're starting a new role.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a bull in a china shop and think you have all the answers and all the coolest things, but there also is so many things that you may not know. So taking a beat to really pause and listen and understand, not just around the work that has to happen, but also the culture that's being built, because having a strong team and strong culture ultimately will mean good business. So I think that's a critical one. Looking at juxtaposed worlds, I think a lot of times people get kind of focused on their industry. And if I only looked at sports, that would be a travesty because in order for us to kind of
Yeah.
move the business forward, I have to look at best practices from other worlds. And so I would say building your relationships with people and disciplines or businesses outside of yours and really seeing how you can apply those thoughts to improve the work that you're doing would be critical.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'm going to shift gears and want to talk a little bit about agencies because setup lives in the space between brands and agencies, and we often, connect them together. So how do you work with agencies today? When do you work with agencies? What kinds of things would you never outsource outside of your team? And what kinds of things would you always want to get an outside perspective from agency?
That's a great question because I think, with the Hots, we've evolved relationships with agencies over time. We've done a lot of building internally.
Mm.
But with that, we have to flex based on the needs of our business. And as we grow, a lot of times it is farming work out to agencies or freelancers, more on the creative side, if it is helping with a particular project or video piece. But other times if we're building strategies for, programs that we want to launch, we keep a lot of that work in-house,
Mm-hmm.
at
Yeah.
least, because we are still a small organization, even though we're an NBA team. I think perception is they're international and huge, but
Right.
we're still, a local business at the same time. I do think one of the things that I look for in agencies is based on the brand and the target audience, making sure that there's some level of diversity within the agency that can speak authentically to that audience.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of times where I've been pitched by people who look nothing like my target audience, have no connection to it. And I'll ask, what is the makeup of your agency? What does that look like? And when they, look like a deer in headlights, like, but we do great work. I don't doubt the work that you do, but I think it's important for us to do business with people who understand our audience in new and unique ways. And
100%.
even based on being in Atlanta, we were one of the first teams, with the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. And so we take that work very seriously, not just in the work that we do, but also in who we work with.
Love it. So in terms of evaluating your agencies on an ongoing basis or hiring a new agency, what other things are you looking for in agency support? Obviously, you want agencies that look like your audience, which your audience is a very diverse
Exactly.
audience. I mean, living in the city of Atlanta, we are fortunate to have a very diverse, we're not in a city that's very homogenous. And so what kind of traits or qualities are you looking for in an agency partner?
I think, one of the important ones is transparency. A
Mhm.
lot of times there can be a lot of bait and switch, or folks that are here helping you pitch that you never see again and working on a campaign, and,
Right.
those sorts of
The
things.
pitch
Or,
team never shows
yeah,
up
or,
again. Right.
hey, yes, it'll be this amount, but then here are also all these hidden charges that you didn't know you
Right.
were going to have.
Right.
And so, I
We've
really
seen
look
that.
for transparency. And I think it also truly depends on the project, because if the need is for developing something cutting edge for a new audience and you want an irreverent voice, I want to work with an agency that has some background or case study of irreverent work or copywriting that's in that
Yeah.
frame of mind. Or if I'm looking at something that's very B2B focused, that's speaking to corporate partners, I'm looking for an agency that has the ability to kind of turn on a dime and operate in that way. It's difficult to find one-stop shops that can do all those things very, very
Yeah.
well. And so I really think it's looking to be targeted in the work that we're looking for. And if it's, digital, or we're looking for an influencer campaign, how are they approaching the work differently than everybody else in the
Yeah.
market may be? Because there's a lot of things that we can try to do in-house, but if we're partnering with an agency, it's because they do something above and beyond what we're able to do. And so having that point of differentiation and being able to articulate that is critical.
Awesome. So let's shift to the work a little bit. Is there a particular campaign or past thing that you've done that you're extremely proud of that maybe was a little different or unique or special?
I would say the last season, the one that just ended, we launched our Peachtree uniforms. And our whole idea of our Peachtree campaign for our city edition with Nike was one that we'd probably been working on for about 3 years prior to.
Wow.
So having it finally come to life and be integrated in ways that we had never done before, we never had a retail truck component. So we were able to do that for the first time and go out from a sales perspective. That jersey was probably one of our top selling jerseys in our history.
Yeah.
That coupled with being able to honor people on court, bringing folks in. I really think that all, the levers of our business were firing at all cylinders around that Peachtree campaign drop. Even, being able to partner with 2 Chainz and Sleepy Rose to launch our uniform on court the night, and then very quickly followed, I think the next day, with launching our College Park Skyhawks team in College Park with 2 Chainz as an owner. Like, there were so many synergies that were able to be linked throughout that campaign, but from the visual execution of it in our arena and through our campaigns around the city to what it actually did from a retail and revenue perspective was awesome to see. And I think all the members of our team felt like we really kind of collaborated and got aligned in ways that we had talked about for years, but this was finally the first execution of it. So we were
That's
very
cool.
excited about what was going to come beyond. And obviously COVID has now made it a bit of a different situation, but we have a lot more very cool things coming.
So I know you have a boss, the CEO of the Atlanta Hawks, who definitely is a marketing minded CEO, I'll call him. But how do you share the value of marketing within the organization? How does that work in terms of showing the value of what you deliver?
Well, it's a great question, because having a brand marketer led CMO, who is tremendous in business as well, really has helped to shift our organization and mindset of the importance of brand story and
Mm,
how that translates into revenue, and, what that's done from our corporate
yeah.
partnership perspective, being able to build compelling campaigns from a ticket sales standpoint. And so I don't think there's a push or pull. It's definitely understanding that we're all aligned in a way in order to make the business success happen. And so even as we shifted in COVID and being focused on the community, I don't think people saw that as, oh, that's just a marketing. It was the important thing to do for our business.
Yeah.
And so I think what it does, it just really helps with internal alignment, because it's not an us or them, but we really
Great.
use marketing as an asset to drive demand. And that's what the goal is.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to ask you some off the wall, random questions to wrap things up, because we're nearing the end of our time. So this one's fun. Which fictional story or realm would you like to live in? So I'm a Star Wars guy. I would love to live in Star Wars, but is there a realm or
I would love to live at Hogwarts because
Oh,
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I feel like that would be so cool to play Quidditch and that entire experience. So I'm going to go Hogwarts is my realm.
nice. All right. So is there a book or a movie or a band that really, really inspires you that you want to share?
Ooh, that's a great question. So one of my favorite bands, Kess the Band, artist out of Trinidad. It's a full band. They just released a live album called We Home. And I was listening to it with my daughter for the past week because it is now her favorite. It's on YouTube. So it's a live concert they did to release their album because in quarantine they couldn't tour, but phenomenal. So Kess the Band, check it out. We
All right.
Home, fabulous.
Excellent. Okay. And so then my last question for you is what brand that you've never worked on outside of, let's say outside of the sports arena and the entertainment arena, what brand do you admire most and why?
You know, the brand that I admire most right now, I would have to say is the Slutty Vegan brand. And I
Bloody
talk
vegan.
about it
So explain what that is for those that don't
for
know.
those who don't know. Slutty Vegan is a local fast food brand that's all around veganism. They have amazing products that have amazing names based in the slutty realm. But I think that they've done a tremendous job, their founder, Pinky Cole, of building a brand that really speaks to something like veganism in a way that can appeal to the next generation of youth who may have no idea what it means to be vegan, in addition to people who are older who never even thought of it. But I mean, it's great quality product. She's looking at working in a number of ways, building her brand from social media, but also now branching out and having multiple stores and locations. But I love kind of the voice, the tone, the work that they do, the product. And I'm not vegan, but I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I really just appreciate it, you know, as a Black woman, you know, being based in Atlanta. You know, I think she went to Clark and has really been able to build an empire that is
Yeah.
continuing to grow and being very authentic to who she is and to her voice.
And it started as just a food
A
truck,
food
but
truck.
it's grown much bigger than that.
It's a
Yeah.
food truck, and I think they're about to open up their third physical store location, and they're looking at a national play.
I think they've successfully made veganism cool so that even those of
Yes.
us who choose to eat meat still would consider vegan choices
Yes.
and be good with that, because also just making it delicious. I mean,
And I think if you would have said that prior to that brand coming out, I'd be like, I don't know how you do that,
right, right.
because it was a very different perception. So being able to change the perception of, you know, an entire industry in some ways, I think is phenomenal, starting out as a food truck, because it's so
Yeah.
much more than that. It's a lifestyle brand now.
Okay, so last question. I know I said that was the last one, but this is, um, so outside, you talked about having that balance between bringing your whole self to work and I've heard you talk in the past about the ability to be yourself and not be the prototypical CMO. I don't look or act or sound like what people's perceptions have been in the past. So where do you, this is a circuitous way to get to a question, but you know, where do you find your greatest joy outside of your work, and what, you know, what inspires you to then want to come and do an amazing job for the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena? I mean, sorry, and State Farm Arena. Oh,
Yep, you're right. I think, you know, what's inspiring me most these days is my daughter,
yeah.
because I'll look at her and she's 6 years old and she won the Kind-Hearted Kid Award in her school.
Oh,
And because of that, she has this tremendous heart where, you know, if someone is bullying her, she's like, but mommy, I don't want to hurt their feelings.
oh,
And I'll listen to her, and there's some things that she does where she's apologetic all the time. And I'm like, stop that, you know, and just things that I've seen in terms of being a woman that inherently, you know, no one has taught her these things, but it's just, you know, within her. And so much of me is like, I want you to be strong and courageous and whatever you want to be in your life, and keep your kind-heartedness and all of that. And so if by me simply being in this position and having the opportunity to speak with you, or, you know, being able to write a book and share my story with others can inspire young girls like my daughter to see something that they can now achieve. When I was growing up, I didn't know that there was such thing as a head of marketing for an NBA team, you know, and it's really hard to be something if you can't see it. And so I really I'm proud to be in the position that I am, but I also take great responsibility in simply being myself. And, you know, when I look at my daughter, I'm hoping that I inspire her. I wrote this book to help inspire her. And hopefully in doing that, it'll inspire others.
Well, I think of all of the awards that your child could win, the Kind Hearted Award is the one that's the best. That's the best.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Melissa Proctor, for joining me today. This has been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to our chat.
Absolutely.